I pulled into our driveway after another 12-hour day at the financial firm, exhausted but satisfied, knowing I was just 3 months away from finally buying my first house. That satisfaction evaporated the moment I saw my younger sister Jessica beaming beside a gleaming silver BMW, keys dangling from her manicured fingers. My heart dropped into my stomach as she announced with a giggle that she had emptied my house down payment savings account to buy her dream car. When I stammered in shock, our parents Patricia and Robert immediately rushed to her defense, insisting I could simply save the money again, but Jessica deserved this luxury after her painful divorce. My carefully constructed world crumbled as I watched my family dismiss 3 years of sacrifice in 30 seconds. I forced a smile, pulled out my phone, and calmly dialed the bank. They had absolutely no idea that savings account was the only thing standing between them and losing their home. Let me paint you the full picture of how my life led to this devastating moment. My name is Thelma Richardson, and at 28 years old, I had built a reputation as one of the most meticulous financial analysts at Brennan Investment Services in downtown Portland. Numbers were my language, spreadsheets my sanctuary, and careful planning my religion. Every decision I made was calculated, measured, and designed to build a stable future. 2 years earlier, I had made what seemed like a temporary sacrifice. My father, Robert, suffered a massive heart attack that left him with mounting medical bills and a weakened memory. My mother, Patricia, overwhelmed by the financial chaos, begged me to move back into my childhood bedroom to help them navigate their crumbling economic situation. I had been renting a cozy apartment across town, living independently since college, but family comes first. I packed my belongings and returned to the pale yellow house on Maple Street where I grew up. The transition was supposed to last 6 months. Instead, it stretched into years as I discovered the true extent of their financial devastation. Hospital bills exceeded $80,000. Insurance covered portions, but co-payments and uncovered treatments created a mountain of debt that threatened to crush my parents' retirement dreams. While managing their crisis, I maintained my own goal of homeownership, setting aside every possible dollar into a dedicated savings account. My daily routine became a masterclass in frugal living. I woke at 5:30 each morning, prepared my lunch at home instead of buying expensive downtown meals, and drove my reliable but aging Honda Civic instead of upgrading to something flashier. Weekend entertainment consisted of hiking local trails, visiting free museums, and cooking elaborate dinners at home, rather than dining at trendy restaurants my coworkers frequented. Every sacrifice felt meaningful because it brought me closer to holding my own house keys. Meanwhile, my sister Jessica lived an entirely different reality. 3 years younger than me, she had married Bradley Hutchinson straight out of college, a successful real estate developer who showered her with designer clothes, luxury vacations, and a lifestyle I could only observe from the sidelines. When she wanted something, she simply bought it. When she grew bored, she found new, expensive hobbies. Her Instagram feed showcased a constant stream of spa days, wine tastings, and shopping excursions that cost more than my monthly salary. The divorce hit Jessica like a freight train. Bradley caught her having an affair with his business partner, and the prenuptial agreement she signed in youthful naivety left her with minimal assets. Suddenly, the woman who had never checked a price tag found herself facing the harsh reality of budgeting and financial responsibility. She moved back home just 2 months before my savings account reached its target goal. From the beginning, our parents treated Jessica's return differently than mine. Where my homecoming was seen as dutiful service to family, hers was viewed as a tragic circumstance requiring comfort and support. Patricia constantly worried about Jessica's emotional state, preparing her favorite meals and encouraging shopping trips to boost her spirits. Robert, whose memory had become unreliable since his heart attack, often forgot that Jessica was divorced and would ask about Bradley's latest business ventures. During family dinners, conversation invariably centered on Jessica's recovery and future plans. When I mentioned house hunting progress or shared excitement about mortgage pre-approval, the topic quickly shifted to Jessica's job search or emotional healing. It stung, but I convinced myself that families go through seasons where different members need different levels of support. The first red flag appeared 3 weeks before the BMW incident. I noticed small discrepancies in my bank statements, amounts that were technically accessible due to old joint account permissions I had established when managing my parents' medical crisis. When I questioned Jessica about unusual withdrawals, she claimed they were for groceries and household expenses that benefited everyone. My parents supported her explanation, suggesting I was being petty about family contributions. Standing in the driveway that evening, watching Jessica caress the BMW's leather interior while our parents celebrated her fresh start, I realized the manipulation had been building for months. The gentle withdrawals were practice runs, testing whether I would notice or protest. Jessica had been studying our family dynamics, identifying my parents' protective instincts toward their younger daughter, and calculating exactly how to position her theft as justified family sharing. The climactic twist that shattered my remaining illusions came when Jessica handed me a stack of withdrawal slips bearing forged signatures. She had been accessing my account using old joint paperwork from when I first moved home, documents that remained valid because I never anticipated family betrayal. Her handwriting barely resembled mine, but she had convinced our elderly parents that I had willingly shared my savings with her during their financial discussions. The emotional impact hit me like a physical blow. This was not an impulsive mistake or misunderstanding. Jessica had planned, practiced, and executed a deliberate theft while manipulating our parents into becoming her accomplices. My 3 years of sacrifice, every skipped vacation and home-cooked meal, every weekend spent managing spreadsheets instead of building social connections, had been stolen by someone who saw my careful planning as an opportunity rather than achievement. As I stood there, forcing a smile while my heart shattered, I realized that fighting back would require the same methodical approach that had built my savings in the first place. But Jessica and my parents had no idea what they had actually stolen, or what consequences their actions would unleash. The next morning brought clarity along with my usual 5:30 wake-up call. While Jessica slept late and my parents enjoyed their retirement coffee routine, I began investigating exactly how deep this betrayal ran. What I discovered over the following days painted a picture of manipulation so calculated and cruel that it left me questioning whether I truly knew my sister at all. My first stop was Dorothy Greenfield, a family friend who had watched Jessica and me grow up. Dorothy worked as a teller at First National Bank and had processed some of the transactions from my account. During our conversation over coffee at Morrison's Diner, she revealed information that made my blood run cold. Dorothy explained that Jessica had visited the bank multiple times over the past 2 months, always accompanied by a smooth-talking man who claimed to be helping her manage family finances. This man, who introduced himself as Shane Carruthers, presented himself as a financial advisor working with our family during my father's health crisis. He carried official-looking documents and spoke confidently about managing assets for elderly parents. The bank tellers, recognizing Jessica as my sister and seeing the joint account permissions, processed her requests without suspicion. Shane's presence added legitimacy to transactions that might otherwise have raised questions. He knew exactly what to say, which forms to reference, and how to make large withdrawals appear routine. But Dorothy's information was just the beginning. When I spoke with our neighbor Mrs. Harper, whose kitchen window overlooked our driveway, I learned that Shane had been visiting our house regularly for over 6 weeks. He arrived during weekdays when I was at work, spending hours with Jessica, and occasionally joining family conversations with my parents. Mrs. Harper described Shane as charming and attentive, the type of man who complimented Patricia's cooking and asked Robert about his military service. He brought flowers for my mother and showed genuine interest in my father's stories about World War II. To my parents, he appeared to be exactly what Jessica needed after her difficult divorce, a respectful, financially stable man who treated their daughter well. What Mrs. Harper witnessed from her kitchen window told a different story. During his visits, Shane often carried a briefcase and spent time reviewing documents with Jessica at our dining room table. They would spread papers across the surface, pointing at specific sections and having intense, quiet conversations. When my parents joined them, the atmosphere shifted to casual and social, but the moment my parents left the room, Shane and Jessica returned to their serious discussions. The manipulation of my parents proved even more sophisticated than I initially realized. Through careful questioning, I discovered that Jessica had been poisoning their perception of me for months. She convinced them that I was planning to abandon them the moment I purchased my house, leaving them to struggle with their financial problems alone. Jessica painted my frugal lifestyle as selfishness, suggesting that I was hoarding money while our family faced hardship. She pointed to my careful budgeting and home-cooked meals as evidence that I cared more about my savings than their comfort. When I worked late or spent weekends managing their medical bills and insurance claims, she reframed my dedication as avoidance and emotional distance. Most cruelly, Jessica exploited our father's memory issues to reinforce her narrative. Robert's heart attack had affected his short-term memory, making him forget recent conversations and repeat questions. Jessica would have the same discussion with him multiple times, each conversation reinforcing her story about my supposed selfishness and her own financial desperation. She told him repeatedly that I had saved too much money and should share with family during difficult times. She reminded him constantly about her divorce settlement and financial struggles, creating sympathy that overrode any logical questions about my savings. By the time she was ready to access my account, Robert genuinely believed that helping Jessica was the right thing to do. Patricia, overwhelmed by managing Robert's health issues and their financial stress, relied heavily on Jessica's version of events. When Jessica suggested that I was being unreasonable about money, Patricia accepted the explanation because it came from someone she trusted and because it simplified a complicated family situation. The web of manipulation extended beyond emotional manipulation into actual financial research. During one of their document review sessions, Shane had actually studied the reverse mortgage paperwork my parents signed 6 months earlier. He understood their financial obligations and payment schedules better than they did. This knowledge was not accidental. It was research for the theft he and Jessica were planning. The climactic twist that revealed the true scope of their conspiracy came when I accessed security footage from our local post office. Jessica had been mailing documents to Shane's business address, copying and sharing our family's financial information without anyone's knowledge. The timestamps on the postal receipts showed that she had been gathering intelligence about our family finances for over 2 months before the first withdrawal from my account. But the most devastating discovery was yet to come. When I reviewed my bank records more carefully, I found unauthorized withdrawals that had nothing to do with the BMW purchase. Someone had been systematically draining my account for weeks, taking amounts small enough to avoid immediate notice but large enough to significantly impact my savings timeline. The pattern revealed a calculated plan to slowly empty my account while maintaining plausible deniability. If I had not discovered the BMW purchase, this theft might have continued until my entire 3-year savings effort was destroyed. Jessica and Shane were not just stealing my house fund, they were stealing my future, one carefully calculated withdrawal at a time. This realization transformed my shock and hurt into something much more powerful: determination. Jessica and Shane had underestimated me completely. They saw my careful nature as weakness, my trust in family as naivety, and my methodical approach as slow-wittedness. They had no idea that the same skills that built my savings would be equally effective at building their destruction. As I sat in my childhood bedroom that night, surrounded by bank statements and security footage, timestamps, I made a decision that would change everything. Jessica wanted to play financial games with my future? She was about to discover that I was far better at this game than she ever imagined. The next morning, I scheduled an emergency meeting with Amanda Wilson, the senior loan officer at First National Bank, who had been helping me navigate the mortgage application process. Amanda's office, located on the 3rd floor of the downtown branch, felt like a sanctuary compared to the toxic atmosphere at home. Her genuine concern when I explained the theft situation provided the first comfort I had felt since discovering Jessica's betrayal. Amanda pulled up my account details on her computer, her expression growing more serious with each screen she reviewed. The numbers told a story that was far worse than I had initially understood. My house fund, which should have contained $42,000, showed a current balance of $3,000 and change. Jessica's BMW purchase represented only a portion of the total theft, but Amanda's review revealed information that made the financial theft seem almost minor compared to the catastrophic implications I had not yet grasped. When I first moved home to help my parents, Amanda had helped me establish automated payments for their various medical bills and insurance premiums. To simplify their financial management during my father's recovery, we had also set up automatic payments for their reverse mortgage obligations. The reverse mortgage, Amanda explained with growing alarm, required monthly payments of $1,200 to prevent foreclosure proceedings. These payments had been automatically withdrawn from my savings account for the past 18 months, arrangement my parents understood but rarely thought about because it happened seamlessly in the background. Amanda's computer screen showed the devastating reality. The automatic payment for this month had failed due to insufficient funds. The reverse mortgage company had sent notices to my parents' home address, but these official letters often got lost in the pile of medical bills, insurance statements, and other correspondence that overwhelmed my father's diminished organizational abilities. According to the loan documents Amanda retrieved, My parents now had 57 days to bring their payments current or face immediate foreclosure proceedings. The reverse mortgage company, Hamilton Financial Services, was notorious for aggressive collection practices and rapid foreclosure timelines. Unlike traditional mortgages that allowed extensive negotiation periods, reverse mortgages carried strict penalty clauses that protected the lender's interests above all else. Amanda calculated the total amount needed to prevent foreclosure: 3 months of missed or pending payments, plus penalty fees and legal costs. The total came to $4,800, money that no longer existed in my depleted account. Without immediate action, my parents would lose the home they had owned for 35 years. The emotional impact of this realization was overwhelming. Jessica had not simply stolen my dreams. She had unknowingly destroyed our parents' security. The home where Patricia had raised 2 daughters, where Robert had recovered from his heart attack, where family memories filled every room, would be sold at a foreclosure auction to satisfy debt obligations my parents barely understood. But Amanda's investigation was far from complete. As she dug deeper into the transaction history, her expression shifted from concern to outright alarm. The security features on my account had flagged unusual activity patterns that required further review. Someone had not only accessed my savings, but had also attempted to access linked credit cards and other financial products associated with my account. The climactic twist that transformed this family financial crisis into a serious criminal matter came when Amanda accessed the bank's internal security footage. Over the past 6 weeks, Jessica had visited the bank 12 separate times, often accompanied by Shane Carruthers, but their visits had not been limited to authorized withdrawals from my savings account. Security cameras captured Jessica and Shane using forged documents to attempt access to my parents' accounts, my personal checking account, and even a small investment portfolio I had built for emergency expenses. Most of these attempts had been blocked by security measures, but several smaller transactions had been processed before the fraud detection systems caught up with their activities. Amanda's review revealed that Shane Carruthers was not simply Jessica's boyfriend helping with family finances. His business card, submitted with several of the transaction requests, listed him as a representative of Premium Auto Solutions, a car dealership with a questionable reputation for predatory lending practices. Shane had used his position to gain Jessica's trust, then exploited their relationship to access our entire family's financial accounts. The total theft now exceeded $55,000 when including attempted transactions, successful withdrawals, and credit card charges made with duplicated account information. This amount pushed the crime from misdemeanor territory into felony charges that carried serious prison sentences and mandatory restitution requirements. Amanda immediately contacted the bank's fraud prevention department and filed reports with local law enforcement. She also reached out to Hamilton Financial Services to explain the circumstances behind the missed reverse mortgage payments and request a temporary hold on foreclosure proceedings while the criminal investigation proceeded. As we concluded our meeting, Amanda handed me copies of all transaction records, security footage, timestamps, and legal documentation that would be necessary for the criminal prosecution. She also provided me with contact information for Margaret Foster, an attorney who specialized in elder financial abuse cases and had experience handling complex family fraud situations. Walking out of the bank that afternoon, I felt the weight of responsibility settling on my shoulders like a heavy blanket. My parents had no idea their home was in jeopardy. Jessica continued to enjoy her stolen BMW while planning additional luxury purchases with Shane's encouragement. The clock was ticking toward foreclosure, criminal charges, and the complete destruction of our family's financial stability. But for the first time since discovering the theft, I also felt a sense of purpose. The same methodical approach that had built my savings would now be used to build a legal case. Jessica and Shane had left a paper trail so extensive and obvious that their prosecution would be straightforward. They had underestimated not just me, but the banking security systems, legal protections for elderly Americans, and the serious consequences of financial elder abuse. That evening, I sat in my car outside Margaret Foster's law office, reviewing the documents Amanda had provided and preparing for the fight that would determine my family's future. Jessica thought she had won by stealing my money and manipulating our parents. She was about to discover that the real battle had not even started yet. Margaret Foster's law office occupied the second floor of a restored Victorian building in downtown Portland, its warm wood paneling and legal volumes creating an atmosphere of serious competence. When I arrived for our emergency consultation, Margaret's assistant ushered me into a conference room where documents were already spread across a polished oak table. Margaret, a woman in her early 50s with silver-streaked hair and sharp blue eyes, had spent the previous day reviewing the materials Amanda Wilson sent over. Her initial assessment was both encouraging and terrifying. Jessica and Shane had committed multiple felonies with such obvious evidence trails that prosecution would be straightforward, but the financial damage might be irreversible depending on how quickly we acted. After 2 hours of reviewing legal options and strategic approaches, Margaret and I agreed that confronting my parents with the truth could wait no longer. They deserved to understand the situation before making any decisions about legal action, and their cooperation would be essential for the criminal prosecution to proceed effectively. That evening, I requested a family meeting. Patricia prepared her famous lasagna, assuming we would be discussing Jessica's future plans and my ongoing support for their household expenses. Robert settled into his favorite recliner, remote control in hand, expecting our usual casual conversation about work and family updates. Instead, I spread bank statements, foreclosure notices, and legal documents across their dining room table. The formal papers looked stark and threatening against Patricia's cheerful floral tablecloth, a visual representation of how serious financial crimes had invaded our comfortable family space. My parents' initial reaction was confusion. Robert squinted at the bank statements, trying to make sense of account numbers and transaction dates that meant little to him. Patricia asked questions about automated payments and reverse mortgage terms that revealed how completely they had trusted me to handle their financial management. As I explained each document and its implications, their confusion transformed into horror. Patricia's face went pale when she realized their house payments had been coming from my savings account. Robert's hands shook as he held the foreclosure notice, finally understanding that they had 54 days to resolve their payment crisis or lose their home. The moment when understanding fully dawned was heartbreaking to witness. Patricia began to cry, not from sadness but from guilt and shame. She realized that their defense of Jessica's theft had threatened not just my future but their own security. Robert's memory issues made processing the information difficult, but his military training helped him focus on the essential facts. Their daughter had stolen money meant to protect their home. Jessica arrived home during our discussion, her BMW keys jingling as she entered through the front door. She walked into the dining room, expecting to find our usual family dinner scene, but instead encountered a table covered with evidence of her crimes, and 3 faces filled with varying degrees of anger, disappointment, and betrayal. Her first instinct was defensiveness. Jessica insisted that she had taken money that belonged to the family anyway, that my savings were excessive for someone living at home, and that her needs after the divorce justified accessing available funds. She accused me of being vindictive and legalistic about family financial sharing, but as the legal documents were explained to her, Jessica's bravado began to crumble. She had not understood that my savings account was connected to our parents' house payments. She genuinely believed she was taking money that affected only my personal goals, not our family's basic security. The climactic twist that completely shattered Jessica's remaining confidence came when my phone rang during our tense discussion. Amanda Wilson was calling with urgent information that could not wait until morning. The bank's fraud investigation had uncovered additional unauthorized charges that appeared on linked credit cards just that afternoon. While we sat around the dining room table, confronting the original theft, Jessica had used duplicated account information to make additional purchases. Shane had taken her shopping for expensive jewelry, designer clothes, and luxury vacation bookings. They had spent the afternoon celebrating what they believed was their successful theft, completely unaware that every transaction was being monitored and documented by bank security systems. Amanda's call confirmed that the total theft now exceeded $55,000 and had officially triggered felony prosecution requirements. The district attorney's office had been notified, and arrest warrants would be issued within 24 hours. Jessica was facing serious prison time, not just family disapproval. The emotional impact on our family was devastating. Patricia sobbed as she realized how completely Jessica had manipulated her protective instincts. Robert, despite his memory issues, understood that one daughter had stolen from another daughter while putting their home at risk. Jessica sat in stunned silence as the legal and financial consequences of her choices became undeniably real. But the call from Amanda Wilson also brought surprising news. Margaret Foster's intervention with Hamilton Financial Services had been successful. The reverse mortgage company agreed to suspend foreclosure proceedings for 90 days while the criminal case proceeded, understanding that elder financial abuse was involved and that restitution payments would be part of any legal settlement. This reprieve provided breathing room, but did not eliminate the underlying crisis. Without my stolen savings, our parents still lacked funds for their monthly house payments. Jessica's BMW and luxury purchases could not be easily converted back into cash, and Shane's car dealership had structured the financing to make vehicle returns extremely difficult. As our family meeting concluded near midnight, the full scope of Jessica's betrayal was finally clear to everyone. She had not simply taken money from my account. She had manipulated our elderly parents into supporting theft, jeopardized their housing security, and committed felonies that would result in prison sentences and permanent criminal records. Looking around our dining room table that night, I felt a complex mixture of emotions. Anger at Jessica's calculated betrayal, sympathy for my parents' genuine confusion and guilt, and determination to see justice served while protecting what remained of our family's financial stability. Jessica returned to her bedroom that night knowing that arrest warrants were being prepared and that her choices had consequences far beyond anything she had imagined. For the first time since discovering the theft, I felt that accountability was finally within reach. The next morning brought chaos along with the sunrise. Jessica's panicked voice echoed through the house as she made frantic phone calls, trying to undo transactions that could not be reversed and escape consequences that were already in motion. I listened from my bedroom as she begged Shane to meet her at the bank, pleading with him to help return the BMW and cancel their vacation bookings. Shane's response, which I could hear clearly through her increasingly desperate tone, revealed his true character. The charming financial advisor who had wooed Jessica with romantic dinners and expensive gifts disappeared completely when legal trouble emerged. He claimed their relationship was casual, denied knowledge of any financial improprieties, and refused to help her navigate the crisis he had helped create. By 9 o'clock that morning, Jessica was driving her stolen BMW to Premium Auto Solutions, hoping to return the vehicle and recover enough money to begin making restitution payments. What she discovered there provided another devastating lesson about trusting smooth-talking strangers with financial decisions. Shane's car dealership, which had seemed so professional and legitimate during their courtship, revealed itself as a predatory business designed to trap customers in impossible financial situations. The BMW purchase contract that Jessica signed contained clauses buried in small print that made returns virtually impossible, and structured payments to maximize dealer profits while minimizing customer protections. The vehicle's value had been artificially inflated through unnecessary add-ons, extended warranties, and financing terms that would make the total cost nearly twice the car's actual worth. Jessica discovered that returning the BMW would still leave her owing more than $20,000 in penalties, fees, and interest charges that had accumulated during the few days since purchase. Shane, who had positioned himself as Jessica's helpful boyfriend during the sales process, now treated her as just another customer whose financial problems were not his concern. He refused to modify the contract terms, claimed that all transactions had been properly documented and legally binding, and suggested that Jessica's buyer's remorse was not grounds for special accommodation. The dealership's general manager, Travis Kellerman, proved equally unsympathetic when Jessica explained her situation. He dismissed her claims about family financial emergencies, pointed to the signed contracts as binding legal agreements, and threatened to report her BMW as stolen if she failed to make the first monthly payment due the following week. Jessica's attempts to contact Shane personally met with complete rejection. His phone numbers had been changed, his social media profiles deleted, and his business address led to a P.O. box rather than an actual office. The romantic relationship that had seemed so supportive and genuine was revealed as a calculated manipulation designed to identify and exploit vulnerable targets. Meanwhile, my investigation into Shane's background was revealing information that made Jessica's situation even more disturbing. Margaret Foster's legal team had discovered that Shane Carruthers was not his real name. His actual identity was Shane Morrison, a man with previous convictions for financial fraud and elder abuse in 2 other states. Shane's method of operation was sophisticated and well-practiced. He targeted recently divorced women who were emotionally vulnerable and financially desperate, using dating apps and social connections to identify potential victims. Once he established romantic relationships, he gained access to their family financial information and exploited elderly relatives who trusted their daughter's judgment about new boyfriends. The climactic twist that ended Jessica's attempts to escape consequences came on Friday afternoon. Frustrated by her inability to return the BMW or contact Shane, Jessica decided to drive to his apartment complex to confront him directly. Her emotional state, combined with her inexperience handling a high-performance vehicle, created a dangerous situation that nearly turned financial crimes into personal tragedy. While driving through downtown Portland at excessive speed, Jessica lost control of the BMW on a rain-slicked curve near the Morrison Bridge. The vehicle skidded sideways across 2 lanes of traffic before slamming into a concrete barrier, triggering its safety systems and leaving Jessica shaken but uninjured inside a car that was now totaled. The police response to Jessica's accident revealed that arrest warrants had indeed been issued that morning. Officer Sarah Martinez, who responded to the scene, recognized Jessica's name from the fraud investigation briefings and placed her under arrest while she sat in the damaged BMW waiting for medical evaluation. The irony was almost poetic. Jessica's desperate attempt to escape accountability had literally crashed into reality. The BMW that represented her selfish desires and manipulative theft was now a twisted wreck that would provide insurance money for restitution payments, while Jessica faced felony charges in the county jail. Shane's arrest came 12 hours later when police traced his real identity and discovered he was wanted on outstanding warrants in California and Nevada for similar crimes. His sophisticated operation had finally encountered victims who fought back with legal resources and documented evidence. His pattern of targeting vulnerable women and their elderly family members had been exposed, and prosecutors in multiple states were coordinating charges that would ensure significant prison time. Back at our house on Maple Street, the family was processing these rapid developments with a mixture of relief and sadness. Patricia felt guilty about enabling Jessica's manipulation, while also worried about her daughter's safety in jail. Robert's military experience helped him understand that accountability was necessary, but his paternal instincts made him want to protect Jessica from consequences. For me, watching Jessica's elaborate schemes collapse in real time provided validation that methodical preparation and legal intervention could triumph over manipulation and theft. But the victory felt hollow, because it came at the cost of family relationships and trust that might never be fully repaired. That evening, as we waited for updates about Jessica's arraignment and Shane's extradition proceedings, I realized that the crisis was far from over. Legal justice was being served, but our family still needed healing, financial recovery, and new foundations for trust and communication. Margaret Foster's office became my second home during the following weeks, as we prepared for the legal proceedings that would determine Jessica's fate and our family's financial recovery. The conference room where I had first reviewed bank statements was now filled with evidence boxes, witness statements, and prosecution documents that painted a comprehensive picture of financial crimes spanning multiple states and victims. District Attorney Karen Hutchins had assigned the case to her office's Elder Abuse Unit, recognizing that Jessica and Shane's crimes fit a pattern of sophisticated financial manipulation targeting vulnerable elderly Americans. Prosecutor David Chen specialized in these cases and brought both legal expertise and personal passion to pursuing maximum penalties for offenders who exploited family relationships to commit theft. The evidence against Jessica was overwhelming and undeniable. Bank security footage showed her making unauthorized withdrawals while accompanied by Shane, who coached her on what documents to present and what explanations to give tellers. Audio recordings from the bank's customer service calls captured Jessica impersonating me to gain account information and override security protocols. Most damaging to Jessica's case were the text messages and emails she had exchanged with Shane over the previous months. Digital forensic specialists had recovered communications that revealed extensive planning, research into our family's financial situation, and discussions about how to maximize theft while minimizing detection. These messages demonstrated clear intent to commit fraud rather than family financial emergencies that could generate sympathy from a jury. Shane's criminal history provided additional context that strengthened the prosecution's case. His real name, Shane Morrison, appeared in similar cases across the western United States, always involving recently divorced women and theft from elderly family members. His methods were consistent: establish romantic relationships, gain access to family financial information, and exploit trust to commit systematic theft. The elder abuse charges carried severe penalties under Oregon law. Jessica was facing up to 5 years in prison for theft in the first degree, additional time for elder abuse enhancements, and mandatory restitution requirements that would follow her for decades if she could not pay immediately. Shane faced federal charges for crossing state lines to commit fraud, which could result in 10 to 15 years in federal prison. But the legal case also revealed information that provided hope for our family's financial recovery. Margaret Foster's team had identified assets and insurance policies that could be used for restitution payments. The BMW's insurance settlement would provide $28,000 after the dealership's inflated loan was satisfied. Shane's business assets, including inventory and accounts at Premium Auto Solutions, were being frozen pending criminal prosecution. Most importantly, the case had attracted attention from other victims who were pursuing civil lawsuits against Shane and his business associates. A class action lawsuit was being prepared that would combine resources from multiple families and potentially recover additional funds through business insurance policies and asset seizures. The climactic twist that transformed our case from straightforward theft prosecution into a major criminal enterprise investigation came when FBI agents arrived at Margaret Foster's office with evidence from their ongoing investigation into Shane's activities across multiple states. Shane Morrison had not been working alone. He was part of a sophisticated criminal network that specialized in romance fraud, targeting vulnerable women and financial elder abuse. The network included car dealerships, real estate agents, and financial advisors who worked together to identify targets, establish trust relationships, and systematically drain victims' assets. The FBI's evidence included documentation of at least 37 families across 7 states who had been victimized by similar schemes over the past 3 years. The total theft exceeded $2 million, making this a major federal case with resources for comprehensive prosecution and victim restitution. Jessica's cooperation with federal investigators became crucial to prosecuting the larger criminal network. Prosecutor David Chen offered her a plea agreement that would reduce her prison sentence to 18 months in exchange for providing testimony and evidence against Shane and his associates. The agreement also included structured restitution payments and community service requirements focused on elder abuse education. Margaret Foster advised accepting the plea agreement because it guaranteed restitution payments while avoiding the uncertainty of a jury trial. More importantly, Jessica's cooperation could help other families recover stolen assets and prevent future victims from experiencing similar devastation. The emotional impact of watching legal justice unfold was complex and bittersweet. Seeing Jessica in Orange County jail clothing during her arraignment hearing drove home the serious consequences of her choices. But knowing that her testimony could help other families provided some sense that positive outcomes could emerge from our painful experience. My parents struggled with conflicting emotions throughout the legal proceedings. Patricia attended every hearing, torn between supporting Jessica and acknowledging the harm she had caused. Robert's military background helped him understand accountability, but his paternal love made him want to minimize Jessica's punishment. For me, the legal proceedings provided validation that methodical preparation and proper documentation could triumph over manipulation and theft. The security cameras I had requested for our home, the financial records I maintained obsessively, and the prompt legal action I pursued had created an ironclad case that even skilled defense attorneys could not challenge effectively. But beyond personal vindication, the legal case was establishing precedents and procedures that would protect other families from similar crimes. The Elder Abuse Unit was using our experience to train law enforcement officers on recognizing financial manipulation patterns and developing faster response protocols for similar cases. As the legal proceedings moved toward resolution, I began to feel that justice was being served not just for our family, but for a broader community of victims who deserved protection and accountability. Jessica's choices had created devastating consequences, but those consequences were now serving a larger purpose of preventing future crimes and supporting recovery for other families. 3 months after Jessica's sentencing, our family gathered around the same dining room table where we had first confronted the devastating truth about her theft. But this time, the papers spread across Patricia's floral tablecloth told a story of recovery, accountability, and cautious hope for the future. Jessica was serving her 18-month sentence at Coffee Creek Correctional Facility, participating in financial literacy programs and victim impact workshops that were helping her understand the true cost of her choices. Her letters home showed genuine remorse and growing awareness of how her manipulation had damaged not just our family's finances, but our fundamental trust in each other. The restitution payments were arriving on schedule. Between the BMW insurance settlement, Shane's seized assets from the federal prosecution, and the class action lawsuit recoveries, our family had received $46,000 in restored funds. While this did not completely replace my stolen savings, it provided enough money to stabilize our parents' reverse mortgage payments and restart my house hunting process. Shane Morrison received a 3-year federal sentence after cooperating with investigators to help prosecute the larger criminal network. His testimony led to the conviction of 12 other individuals involved in elder financial abuse schemes across the western United States. The dealership where he worked was shut down, and its predatory lending practices became the subject of new consumer protection legislation in Oregon. Most importantly, our family had begun the difficult work of rebuilding relationships and establishing healthier communication patterns. Patricia and Robert were attending counseling sessions with Dr. Elizabeth Warren, a specialist in family trauma recovery, learning to recognize manipulation tactics and set appropriate boundaries with their adult children. My father's memory issues had been properly diagnosed as early-stage cognitive impairment related to his heart attack. With appropriate medication and cognitive therapy, his condition stabilized, and he developed systems for managing his finances that protected him from future manipulation. He became an advocate for elder abuse awareness, sharing his story at community centers and senior living facilities throughout Portland. Patricia's transformation was perhaps the most dramatic. The guilt and shame she felt about enabling Jessica's theft motivated her to become involved with the Elder Abuse Prevention Network, an organization that educated families about financial crime prevention and supported victims of elder financial abuse. Her personal experience made her an effective counselor for other families facing similar betrayals. For me, the experience had been simultaneously devastating and empowering. Losing my savings had been heartbreaking, but successfully fighting back against manipulation and theft had revealed strengths I did not know I possessed. The methodical approach that served me well in financial planning proved equally effective in legal advocacy and family crisis management. The house hunt that had been interrupted by Jessica's theft resumed with new urgency and purpose. The recovered restitution money, combined with savings I had carefully rebuilt over the past months, provided enough for a down payment on a charming cottage just 2 blocks from my parents' home on Maple Street. The cottage, built in 1943 and recently renovated by its previous owners, offered everything I had dreamed of during my 3 years of careful saving. Hardwood floors, a renovated kitchen with vintage-inspired appliances, and a small garden where I could grow vegetables and flowers. Most importantly, it was close enough to my parents' house that I could continue helping them while maintaining my own independent space. My parents insisted that the recovered restitution money should be used for my house purchase rather than their immediate expenses. They had learned to manage their reverse mortgage payments through Social Security and pension income, and they wanted my dream of homeownership to be restored after Jessica's theft had temporarily destroyed it. The closing on my cottage took place on a crisp October morning, exactly 1 year after Jessica's arrest. Margaret Foster attended as my attorney, having become both a legal advisor and a friend during our months of working together. Amanda Wilson from First National Bank processed the mortgage paperwork, completing a journey that had been interrupted but never abandoned. Standing in my new living room that first evening, surrounded by moving boxes and filled with gratitude for the support that had made recovery possible, I reflected on the lessons our family had learned through crisis and accountability. Trust, I realized, is not something that should be given automatically because of family relationships. Real love requires boundaries, honesty, and sometimes difficult conversations about accountability and consequences. Patricia and Robert learned that protecting their daughters meant teaching them responsibility rather than enabling destructive behavior. Jessica's letters from prison showed that she was learning similar lessons. Her participation in victim impact programs had helped her understand that her choices affected real people in lasting ways. Her financial literacy education was preparing her for a life where she would need to manage money responsibly, rather than manipulating others to meet her needs. The experience taught our entire family that financial security requires both careful planning and appropriate protections against manipulation and theft. We established new systems for managing family finances that included transparency, oversight, and regular reviews to prevent future abuse. Most importantly, We learned that fighting back against injustice requires courage, preparation, and persistence. Jessica and Shane had counted on our family being too embarrassed, confused, or overwhelmed to pursue legal action. They underestimated our determination to seek accountability and prevent other families from experiencing similar devastation. As I write this story, Jessica has 6 months remaining on her sentence and is preparing for supervised release and community service requirements. She will be working with the Elder Abuse Prevention Network, sharing her story to help other families recognize manipulation tactics and protect themselves from financial crimes. Our family relationships remain complicated, but are slowly healing through counseling, honest communication, and shared commitment to rebuilding trust. Patricia and Robert have established clear boundaries about financial decision-making while maintaining their love and support for both their daughters. The cottage has become more than just my dream home. It represents the power of persistence, careful planning, and refusing to accept injustice. Every morning when I wake up in my own space, I remember that fighting back against betrayal was worth every difficult day of legal proceedings and family confrontations. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for family members is refuse to enable their destructive behavior and hold them accountable for their choices. Real love protects the vulnerable and builds people up rather than allowing them to tear others down for personal gain. Family loyalty does not mean accepting manipulation, theft, or abuse. Sometimes it means having difficult conversations, setting boundaries, and pursuing justice even when it is painful for everyone involved. But when families commit to accountability and healing, they can emerge stronger and healthier than they were before the crisis began. If you have experienced financial manipulation or elder abuse in your own family, remember that you are not alone and that resources are available to help you fight back. Legal protections exist for victims of these crimes, and organizations like the Elder Abuse Prevention Network can provide support and guidance for recovery. Have you or someone you know experienced financial manipulation by family members? How did you handle the situation? And what advice would you give to others facing similar betrayals? Please share your experiences in the comments below, as your stories can help other families recognize warning signs and protect themselves from financial abuse. If this story resonated with you and provided insights about family relationships and financial protection, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more real-life stories about overcoming adversity and finding strength through difficult circumstances. Share this story with friends and family members who might benefit from understanding the warning signs of financial manipulation and the importance of setting healthy boundaries in family relationships. Your sharing can help protect other families from experiencing similar devastation and provide hope for those who are currently facing financial betrayal. Thank you for listening to my story and for supporting our community of people who believe that accountability and justice are possible even in the most challenging family situations. Remember that your careful planning, determination, and willingness to fight for what is right can overcome even sophisticated manipulation and theft. May your own family relationships be built on honesty, respect, and genuine love that protects and supports rather than exploits and manipulates.